Hey, and welcome to using SketchUp to make technical drawings. Today we're going to make a spanner. It should be pretty easy, we'll knock this out pretty quick. When you first open SketchUp, you want to make sure you're using the correct measurements and template. So what you'll need to do is go to this Choose Template button here, and you'll need to scroll until you can find the woodworking millimeters. So this gives us a good unit of measurement to create our design. So we're going to select that and hit Start using SketchUp. Now when this loads, we're presented with our 3 dimensions. I'm going to use a mouse because I find it much easier to use SketchUp, and just by holding down the middle mouse button I can actually rotate that camera around, which is nice and easy. Now the first thing we're going to do is create a quite large rectangle on the floor here on the x-axis, and that'll give us a template in which to draw our spanner design on. So I'm going to click the Shapes button up the top here and make sure that the rectangle is selected. And I'm just going to click and drag and make quite a large rectangle. Now I can tell this is quite a large rectangle because down the bottom right here we can see the dimensions in millimeters of the shape that we're creating. So I can click and drag and see that I'm making roughly a 2000 millimeter by 1000 millimeter square, which is fine. I'm then going to use the middle mouse button to zoom in onto this origin point here. I'm going to rotate that camera by putting down that middle mouse button, or if you don't have a mouse, you can go up to the rotate tool just up here, the orbit tool, sorry. Click that once and use that to rotate. Now we want to be looking straight down on our template here, which is what we're doing at the moment. The next thing I'm going to do is to make a custom square, and this will be the long half of the spanner. Let me just bring up a Google image and show you what I'm talking about. So over here we're looking at this part, the handle of the spanner. So that's the first thing we'll create. I'm going to, with this Shapes tool selected, click once on this green line here, which will be like so. Now I'm not going to click again, I'm just moving my mouse around, and we can see down the bottom right our dimensions are working away as we resize our shape. Now the size of this, we're going to make it just big enough to fit in your hand. So we're going to go for 20 millimeters by, sorry, I'm going to type in 20, comma, and then I'm going to do by 80 and hit enter. And we can see that our spanner handle has been made. We can measure this as well to make sure it's the correct size. I've clicked on the tape measure tool at the top. I'm going to click once here on the start, once again, and we can see down the bottom right we've got our length. So 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters. Same thing here, it's bang on the 80. Now the next thing is we need to create this open-ended part of the spanner here. So what I'm going to do is essentially create a circle and then cut out the middle of it for a space for our nut to fit. So I'm going to click this arrow, go to the circle tool, and move my mouse so that my little pointer turns a light blue and the message comes up saying midpoint. I know that's the exact center of where the circle origin now is, and I'm going to resize that to 25 millimeters. So while I haven't clicked yet, I'm going to click once in the center and it's still loose, but I'm going to click 25, hit enter, and there is our circle. Pretty neat. Now I'm going to make this to fit a 10 mil size. 10 mil. So in order to do that, I'm going to select this midpoint here. You can see the pencil tool snaps to it right there in that part of the circle. And I'm going to bring this down to that point there and click. So I've made myself a nice symmetrical in the center line. So I clicked once at the top here and once at this line here. I'm now going to use this measure tool to measure out 5 mil each side of this line. So I've clicked once in the center, and then I'm going to drag this along and keep my eye on, there we are, the length, which is 5 mil, just at the bottom. That's 5 mil, it's been marked, and I'm going to mark up with my measuring tool as well. Great, our 5 mil point is there. So now I'm going to get my pencil tool, get to that 5 mil point, and then done. Same thing along here. Now we need to measure this first. Measure to 5, yep, right there. That's our 5 mil part. Get my pencil tool, find that 5 mil point, there it is. It just wants to snap right to it, which is great. And then snap that in. You see how the line turns green? That means it's straight. If it turns any other color, it means you have not done it correctly. So make sure it's nice and straight. Righto, we can now start erasing different components. So I'm going to get my eraser tool here. I'm going to click on that center line, which we don't need it. And I'm going to click on these two lines here, these two black lines. And I'm also going to select that line and that line. So we've almost got a bit of a spanner shape happening here. Watch what happens when I'm going to erase that line, and that is 1/2, oh sorry, and the top here too, and that is 1/2 of our spanner done. Watch what happens when I get this push-pull tool. Push it up, and as you can see, we've got a lovely 3-dimensional shape. So there we are, there is our one-sided spanner all done. Now I want a two-sided spanner, and I want the other end to be 8 mil. So I'm going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Z, and I'm going to select this end just by clicking and dragging around it. And I've got all the parts that I want selected in blue. I don't want to select the handle, so I'm going to leave that black. But all this here, I'm going to duplicate it, swap it to the other end, and then change the size of this. So Ctrl C will copy that. I'm going to move along with my mouse button, and I'm just holding down my middle mouse button, clicking and dragging. Oh, and holding shift, sorry. So holding shift, clicking and dragging with my mouse button. This point here, I'm going to Control V. And when I do that, my mouse cursor is what's controlling where I've placed this. So I'm just going to pop it right there, nice and out of the way. We don't want that touching any of the lines. And I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to get this rotator tool here, and you see how that wheel is blue? That means it's going to be turning on the axis that we want it. If that turns any other color, then it's not going to rotate correctly. So while it's blue, I'm going to put it in the center point here, the midpoint. Click once, click a second time. Oop, I've done that mistake there. Sorry, let's redo that. Edit, redo, paste. Click once, move my mouse out a bit, click a second time. Now we see our problem here. We didn't have everything selected that we needed, so it's only moving that middle bit. So let me click and drag around the whole shape. It's all highlighted blue. Select the rotate, select our midpoint once, move our cursor up to here, select again, and now we can precisely rotate that. You see how this dark black dotted line here lines up and wants to snap in? Perfect. I can then now get the move tool and click on this point here.
Birthday on Saturday?
Thank you very much.